Not what happened to me. Every time I entered a bottom, I basically called it home, and I furnished it and I asked you over. And then I'd get evicted to a lower bottom, and it didn't come to any end. I spent 2 years in a program where they watched me every day for 2 years. Prior to that, I had been in one when I was younger for 3 months. Nothing seemed to be able to do it. So there were all these bottoms, all the wishes of my people who liked me, who didn't like me, the state, my mother. No human power could bring about the stopping of this disease of active alcoholism and addiction. Then I found myself in a trailer one night in 1988 in Calistoga, about an hour and a half north of San Francisco where I live. And I'd been on a 4-day drinking binge starting on St. Patrick's Day, March 17th. I lost my friend's car, and I ended up in this trailer park. And I was with some guy I didn't know, and we had a bottle of Royal Gate vodka, which is a very high-level vodka, about 80 cents a pint. Very famous in California. And the customer service is incredible, because I've seen bottles since, and they realized who their clientele was, so they switched from glass to plastic. Because you used to drop it, ruin your whole night. Right now it bounces back, Like, oh, fuck, I didn't break it. So they were very concerned about us. So me and this guy were drinking this bottle, and we were passing it back and forth, as one is wont to do. And I was hoping for someone to come over to this trailer who had money so we could get drugs. But I had no money. So we're passing this bottle, and I was looking at him just like I'm looking at Henry now. He was a little closer, and he had a bulbous nose and varicose veins on his face. And I said to myself, this guy's a bum, And lo and behold, he was looking back at me like a bum. And for some reason, that triggered an event where my head stopped. The selfing stopped. It's like some divine wrench was thrown in there. And I like to use that as an example, but it wasn't just this way, but it was almost like a portal opened up. That stopped, and then some stuff downloaded. And I had ideas that I hadn't thought of like a minute before, like, you've got to leave here and call up this place I had been at Delancey Street, see if they'll take you back. And then I didn't get the next swig, and I've never had a drink since. I walked out, called up the program that I'd been in, and I'd left 10 months earlier. They had been getting my newsletter that I'd been fucking around, and they said, no, you can't come back. You can come back in a month and have another interview. That doesn't mean you'll get accepted, but we'll do that. And some honesty had downloaded, and I said, I don't have a month. I felt terminally something bad was going to happen pretty quickly. So I called a woman up who I used to party with. She said she'd come and pick me up. In that hour and a half waiting for her, I had a miraculous alcoholic recovery. I wanted to get high again. Forgot all about the moment of clarity and everything like that. But something had downloaded from this portal that wasn't going to let anything happen. It set off trains of circumstances that brought me to my first meeting the next day. And so she made a deal with me. She said, you got to go to an AA meeting if you want a place to stay tonight. And I said, sure. And it sounded like great progress, because the last time I had that deal in Delancey Street, I made a 2-year commitment. She's asking for 1 hour. So I said, fuck, this is progress. Yeah, I'll go. And I could sit on my hands for an hour. So I went in there, and it was a men's meeting, so she couldn't come in. She just dropped me off at 8. She was going to come back at 9. And in that hour, something happened. I felt hope. And that hope allowed me to feel how hopeless I was, When you're really out there, you really know how hopeless you are. Your mind won't let it happen. It's in denial, But somehow the grace of AA started, and I realized how hopeless I was. And I went back to her house and went to sleep as best I could. And the next morning I woke up and something had changed. The miracle had happened. That urge to escape had been simmered down, and I could think some clearer thoughts. And what I thought was, I got to call this AA and see if they have a meeting earlier than 8 o'clock at night, because I'm not going to make it. It's like a fucking eternity. I'm going to get high. So they did. They had one at 12, and I went to that, and I've been coming ever since. And I have, like many of us, reached a state where the problem doesn't exist for me anymore. I never think about it or anything like that. And And I found how really that state stabilized was it doesn't exist as me. You know, I saw that I'm not that. I'm not that which alcoholism takes itself to be. And therefore I have an immunity to alcoholism a day at a time. Yeah? And I'm like a free-range alcoholic, which is really cool. I like the coop, but I don't have to live in the coop, you know, run around and go like crazy. Yeah? Yeah. So that's what's happened. So what more demonstration do I need in this drama of life? The most influential thing in my life that no human power could stop or change suddenly was changed in 5 minutes by a power greater than self. Yeah? And the solution that it started is still rolling for 26 and a half years later. I think that's a pretty damn good solution. Right? Yes. So, and again, I'm not trying to maintain my spiritual condition. I am one, and I'm not trying to improve my conscious contact. I think it's fine and dandy just as it is, to tell you the truth. If it wants to improve itself, fine. If it doesn't, fine. I don't care. I've lost all interest in being liberated from anything. So that's it.
Good question for you. You talk about the self being a parasite, and
not a real parasite, a mental one. It's not a thing. Yeah.
The analogy that works for me more is, although I like the old parasite one, I do definitely works, is that it's a survival mechanism that, you know, for me as someone, as a child growing up, I needed to figure out how to get more food, how to communicate, how to live, how to exist, how to not get bullied in the playground, how to become an adult, all these things. And this my brain started kicking in and said, I can figure stuff out. I can figure out how to get more milk. I can figure out how. But it got out of control. So it was sort of a tool that took over, as opposed. Well, I guess that sort of is a parasite to a degree.
Yes.
But I guess in a way, for me, it's more natural and more accepting, and I can be more loving to that, because I can say, hey, you know, you had to survive at that time, so you use that tool.
Well, yeah. Well, if you're looking at it that way, then you can see that its basic programming is about existence, and now you're into living, which is different.
Right.
Yeah.
The tool. But the parasite thing gives me something more to feel.
But the selfing is where that survival and managing come from. The alcoholism is trying to get relief from that.
Right.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
The alcoholism is trying to get out of there, really. But it can't, it's a fix to it, yeah? Because the real disease is the addiction of mental condition to the idea of being a self.
Right.
That's what produces this subdivision called alcoholism. And alcoholism's whole survival mechanism is to get out of that. Let's get loaded. Let's get relief. Yeah? Yeah. And it doesn't work because self can't get out of self. So if you're identified as self, then you recognize that this objectified idea of self is the problem. You'll be thinking you're leaving the problem, but you're leaving it as the problem. Yes? People have the idea of self objectified, and they're studying it, but they're studying it from the statement of AA, self-knowledge avails you nothing. They're studying it from identification as self, so the knowledge they're getting is claimed by the selfing, and it neuters it. So it's not going to lead to freedom from self. All the self-knowledge you get. Knowledge is great, but if it's claimed by the selfing, which it will be, then it will neuter it. Yeah? That's why it has that statement, self-knowledge avails us nothing. It's a very weird thing. There's a lot of value put into knowledge in life. He doesn't say knowledge avails us nothing. Self-knowledge. Yeah? So self is claimed itself to be the one who has the knowledge. That neuters all the knowledge. Because the problem is that sense of being the one who has. Yes? Yes. It's the feeling of being the one who's doing or being done to. It's not the doing and the done to. It's the feeling of being the one who's doing or being done to. It's a much subtler thing, and it's not the ego. The sense of self has an ego. See? The sense of self claims to have an ego, which is just an objectified conceptual representation of its idea of itself. Ego. That's what it is. But it's not the ego that's defeating you. The ego can be used to defeat you. It's self. It's the being identified as self is the defeat. Yeah? Don't think the hammer is what's hitting you. The hammer is being used to hit you, but it's not what's hitting you. The ego is not what's hitting you. It's the selfing. Yeah? The thoughts are not what's hitting you. The thoughts are being used by the idea of being the thinker to hit you. Yes? Find what's using all these processes to facilitate the bondage to its idea. That's the sense of self. Not the hammers and the fucking nails and this or that. Yeah?
So to go back to what you said earlier, not to be in the problem, but in the solution.
Yeah.
How do you keep the channel open? How do you keep yourself in self?
Well, if you are the channel, it's very difficult to close it. So here you are. First, I had the experience, I'm the hose and the water's through me. Then after a while, the hose dropped and all there is water. That's what you are. So you're not the conduit, you're both. You're the conduit and the water. Yes.
All things.
You're of a spiritual nature. Spiritual to me is no thingness, right? So you're not of form, so no thingness. That is your inherent nature. That's what's moving through seemingly this body, yeah? But it's not inhabiting the body, and it's not a body product, and it's definitely not the body, yeah? I had an uncle who I really liked, and he died when I was about 9. So my mother took me to the wake, and she said, "Do you want to say goodbye to Uncle Fred?" Which I didn't really want to do, but I said, all right. So my mother brought me to the casket, and I looked in, and there was the body of Uncle Fred, but I had a direct hit that wasn't Uncle Fred. See, I was assuming the body was Uncle Fred as long as it was enlivened by Uncle Fred. Once I saw it without Uncle Fred in it, it was obvious not Uncle Fred. And why I thought it was Uncle Fred that first place, because I thought Paul was this. So I was getting this body and giving the meaning to that body. But it was obvious when the life was out of that body, that was not what I was calling Uncle Fred. Yeah, I was engaged with something other than the body. We were doing it through a body, but it wasn't the body. It was so beautiful. It was very, very fast, but very, very succinctly pounded into me. That's not him. Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you?
9. No thought. Just look. Perception. How could it's not hit me as Uncle Fred? It was just a dead thing. Yeah. Yes. It doesn't mean the action figure stops. It's never been powered by what you think is you, the mental state. The mental state's part of the body. It's not running the body. Yeah. And it's like an action figure. It has a destiny. It has its opinions and proclivities and tendencies. Why keep claiming them to be yours? If they're not killing anyone, a lot of my behavior is not killing people, fucking around with people. I'm not ripping people off. And so when I was out there, that's when I needed to be highly observant, and I wasn't. And now the mental state wants to be highly observant, but I shouldn't be. Everything's fine. The mental state is behaving. The action figure, it's not causing much trouble. I don't follow it. You know what I mean? Like the police anymore. It's not, the urban renewal project has been cut off. It's not, there's no more I'm trying to get my health better. There's no me in there trying to make better. It's just like, I want this to be like a Toyota, yeah? I want to get a lot of miles on it with very little maintenance. That's basically it. I don't want it to be super shiny or super fast, be able to leap over buildings. I just don't want to have to pay much attention to it. Yeah, I want it to run. What? Yeah. So I want it to run well and then this and that. But the idea of working on me is finito. Just see it's not you, man. That's all. And then I'll tell you, the body is so free when that giant mother hen gets off it. this doesn't do well identified as the center of the universe. It really doesn't. It's like putting 2 tons in a half-ton pickup. It's way too much for it. You know what I mean? I'm it. You know, it's just a fucking workable thing. You know, it does a lot better when you stop identifying with it as everything. You know, my health is going. I was really badly shaped, and over the years of sobriety, I'm getting healthier and healthier in a lot of ways because there's less interest in it. Yeah. Yes. So that's it again.